Well, there you have it. Once again, Nintendo is in trouble. Hey, how's it going, YouTube? It's your homeboy Lil. Appreciate you for checking in. And right now, we're about to check out a video from Sendo DX on why Nintendo fans are bootlickers. Nintendo, we've got another Nintendo one, y'all. And it might seem like I'm doing this to hate, but I promise you, I loved playing my Nintendo 64 back in the 1997 or whatever. Like that was some of my favorite memories. So we're about to get into this video and see what the hell is going on.
Across the internet, every single gaming community has its own language, its own way of showing love and frustration towards the games and the brands that they cherish. But among them, one group stands apart for a variety of reasons, and that is the Nintendo community on X. This community is fascinating for one very particular reason, and to put it crudely, that reason is bootlicking. This is a term that seems to crop up in every single Nintendo tweet thread, with people calling the fans that support the company corporate bootlickers for a variety of reasons. But why?
I don't think people should be calling people that, but that's funny.
Why have they garnered this perception? Why is this term used so frequently to describe an entire fandom? First off, the idea that a Nintendo fandom exists in general is kind of crazy. Most times when people are in the gaming sphere, they tend to have this close connection with individual gaming IPs or experiences rather than an entire brand. For example, there are Sonic fans. When doing a quick poll on my Twitter account asking, hey, are you a Sega fan, which is the company that produces Sonic, or are you a Sonic fan, the overwhelming response was not in favor of being a Sega fan. The idea that any fandom exists in gaming in this way that encompasses...
I could actually feel that, because I have a Xbox Series X. Before I had a Xbox One. Took me a little bit to make that switch, because honestly I had no problem, but I really wanted to play Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. Bought the game and then realized, oh, I couldn't even play it. I was so pissed. It took me like 6 months to get the money up to buy that Series X so I could play, because I still wanted the disc slot and everything. But it's weird whenever I tell people I have an Xbox, because they're like, oh man, you should have a PlayStation, you seem more like a PlayStation guy. And I'm like, PlayStation guy, like, don't they have the same games basically? Like, and then I realized, like I forgot about all the exclusives. But it is weird, like if you love Nintendo, like you're like, no, I love Nintendo. And you're like, yeah, I like Mario, but I like Donkey Kong too. I like Star Fox and everything. So that's an interesting point.
This is effectively every IP created.
Oh my god, Pikmin, that was my game.
Created by a gaming company and not just individual IPs or experiences. That's strange. That is not usual. So that's kind of a general idea. It seems like Nintendo fans have a deeper emotional connection to the company brand, more so than other fan groups within a similar sphere. But how do we actually test this to see if it's true? The way I decided to test this was by grabbing 3 different tweets from the Nintendo of America Twitter account that has about 14.2 million followers. One of these tweets was a trailer for the Nintendo Switch 2, the other was a smaller announcement, that being new social icons for Nintendo Switch profile accounts, and then one throwaway tweet from the account that just had a screen grab from the new Mario Kart game with a silly joke attached to it, nothing serious. I then scoured the PlayStation official Twitter account that, by the way, has 42.4 million followers to try and grab tweets that fit a similar description as the ones that I grabbed from Nintendo. My first interesting result was that I couldn't find a single tweet from the PlayStation account that had a joke being made at all. Just anywhere. I couldn't find one. It was all business.
That sounds like Sony.
No fun. Immediately, this showcased a massive difference between the philosophy being shown by Nintendo versus the philosophy being shown by PlayStation. Nintendo likes to have fun, make some jokes, a little bit of lighthearted stuff here and there. PlayStation, no, they're all serious, no BS, all business, okay? Other than that, I actually found a tweet announcing the PS5, which is their most recent system, as well as a tweet of them announcing a smaller announcement, that being the addition of new COD maps. And then I did a deep dive. I looked at pretty much every single reply from every single one of these tweets. It took absolutely forever. It took so long. In every single instance, on every single one of the comparison tweets, comparing the replies of Nintendo tweets to the replies of PlayStation tweets, the Nintendo fandom used
You know what? And I always thought this. I'm one of those guys. I don't really care what I'm playing. I just kind of want to play the game. I don't really care which one it's on. This almost looks sad. Like you're looking at Kirby, Forgotten Land. Looks dope. Looks fun. I would love to play it. And then you go over here and you're like, oh. So are we having fun or are we about to go like to actual war? Like that's crazy.
used terminology and acted in ways that symbolized a more personal connection with that brand, as if they were interacting with just another user on the platform and not a massive multi-million-dollar brand.
Nice.
For example, in these small announcement tweets from PlayStation, there were two things I noticed that were different from Nintendo tweets. One, there was so much less interaction in the reply section on the PlayStation tweet, and it
I
was
didn't even notice that. Like
in the reply section on the PlayStation tweet, and it wasn't even close. Threads effectively did not exist, meaning community members were not replying to each other, and the words being used to talk to the PlayStation account were all very cold. For example, there seemed to be a mini movement going on in the replies from individual accounts saying, "We want Turkish language support in Death Stranding 2!" There seems to be more of a mentality that, hey, you're a company and this is what I want from you, end of story, communication over. No replies to the tweets, no replies to other tweets, just asking for things that they want as a consumer and getting out of there. The language seen in these replies and the lack of interaction between accounts showcases that there is not a sense of connection underneath the brand. And then you hop over to the Nintendo tweets. You can already see that community interaction is far better for Nintendo than on the PlayStation side of things. There's just more likes, more replies, more of everything. Then, when you go into the replies, you'll start to notice a stark difference between the way people were talking to PlayStation and the way people were talking to Nintendo. There were a lot of informal ways of interacting with the company. There are lots of GIFs and image reactions.
Honestly, and I think Nintendo kind of built this way early on, especially, what was it? The Super Nintendo was a little bit before my time, but my aunt had one, and I had a Nintendo 64. And I think it was really like kind of cool how it was like really, I made a lot of friends playing like having a Nintendo 64 because I would either go over to my friend's house or my friends would come over to my house, and there was 4 slots for controllers. Almost every game was like you could play with 4 players, as opposed to like I had a PlayStation 1 and a lot of the games were kind of like 1 player, or they were like a 2-player fighting game or a sports game. So Nintendo always just seemed more fun, like just more like, ooh, I want to hang out with those people over there. Like these games are cool, but like, ooh, everyone's laughing and joking over here, and I'm mad serious. Like,
Weird jokes that I really don't think most people would put underneath company threads on a normal basis, at least, alright? And it just keeps going on. The community interaction is not only present, but it is thriving. The informal discussion circulating around the brand and the friendly interactions being sent
whoever their social media person is incredible. Like for real.
in the company's direction showcases a completely different perspective than was seen on the PlayStation tweet. Nintendo's brand has become an informal space. Informal enough for things like this to thrive, at least. The only types of posts underneath the Nintendo tweets that I could find that held a similar kind of, hey, you're a company and this is what I want from you style, which again was incredibly prevalent in the PlayStation tweet replies, were posts that were asking Nintendo to lower the prices of the Nintendo Switch 2. This is a part of an anti-Nintendo movement where people want the price of the Switch 2 that they announced just recently and the games that come on it to drop. And even in these scenarios where people are
this is what I was talking about. I think either in the last one or maybe in this one, I can't remember. They're both Nintendo videos, but $80 for a game. That's like, okay, hold on. I just gotta look it up. Switch 2. Oh, it was closer to the price I thought. Okay, no. I was right. So $80 for a game. Could you imagine you go and try to buy one of these, you save up almost $500, and then it's going to be $500 after the tax in California, at least. And on top of that, then you got to get an $80 game that's going to be $85. You just spent $585 just to play one game. That is insane to me. Like,
asking for the company to make changes that users believe will benefit them, there are replies that are making fun of people asking for this change. Defense of PlayStation was not there. Period. End of story. Most of the replies were actively against PlayStation. Very few comments with mildly negative things to say about the company go unnoticed and unreplied to. There seems to be a desire to go up to bat for Nintendo that is not present in PlayStation's reply section.
Then you gotta subscribe. Oh my god, I cannot talk tonight. Then you gotta subscribe to online. Like, Nintendo, what are we doing? Y'all started as a legal card game company, yo. I think y'all forget that. Like, y'all were grimy trying to get it. Now y'all grimy trying to steal. You want somebody's wallet? Like, damn.
So this is great. We are already starting to see a massive difference in the way that the Nintendo community interacts with their brand versus the way that the PlayStation community interacts with their brand. But also, I didn't really want all of my observations to be looking down on a tweet thread and waxing poetic about why people are responding to specific things in specific ways and what that could potentially signify. I also wanted to do a small survey where I asked some Nintendo community members, some of which had incredibly large followings, how they felt about the fandom and how long they had been within it. This way I could get a better understanding of the behind-the-scenes aspects of the fandom that I can't really glean from simple observations. When it came to how long people had interacted with the brand of Nintendo as a fandom, there were some outliers with fans that had just started interacting with the brand as a fandom in the last 8 or so years, but the more consistent lower end of active users in the Nintendo X fandom was around 15 years of Nintendo content consumption. Once again, that's the lower end. The higher end had people consuming the content since the 90s, so there's an incredibly deep connection to these properties due to long-term exposure. And then I asked two questions back to
Y'all remember the Wii? How innovative and like crazy it was? A lot of y'all might not remember this. The Wii, I think, was like $250, which was crazy at the time. It included the controller and the nunchuck. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it had a second one. Like, it had two with it so that you could immediately unbox the Mickey Ficky, set it up in the living room with your kids, and immediately now you got two controllers, you're ready to play. Now, I bought my $600 Xbox. It came with one remote. Like, and then to buy an additional remote, I think the minimum was like 700 or 700, like $75. What is happening? Like,
back.
real,
One of them was, hey, what do you
no matter how innovative a product is, it's plastic, yo. Like,
like about the fandom? And the response there was pretty consistent. People like talking to people that had similar interests to them, pretty much the reason a lot of people join fandoms. But the next question is what I found far more fascinating. When I asked what the worst part of the fandom was, that too was consistent across the board of the 15 or so people that I messaged individually on the platform. People in the community tend to be way too invested in the success of the company, defending things like those prices, seeming to panic if certain games aren't being advertised as much as they'd like, things like that. As for the bad, some of us Nintendo fans can get really uppity when someone says something bad about any games they like, as well as some of us generally being bootlickers sometimes. That's easy. It's the people whose perspective on the medium
hey, I like whoever posted this comment. They're honest as hell.
of video games is exclusively built on their experience with Nintendo games, which creates a warped perspective and set of expectations. It's difficult to have good faith discussions with that demographic of Nintendo fan, and feels like they enable Nintendo to get away with anti-consumer practices by supporting them even when they don't deserve it. I'd say the worst part of the Nintendo fandom is the inability to acknowledge Nintendo's flaws at times. The best example of this is Nintendo's constant overpricing of games. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD being full priced at $60 when the original on 3DS only a few years prior started at $40 and went down to $20 later.
Thank you. Okay, I'm glad somebody was with me during these years. Like,
Yet, if you bring it up, a lot of fans will get at you for it. Once again, it was consistent across the board. My question was, what is the worst part of the Nintendo fandom? There was no attempt to lead people to these answers. This was just what I got. Too much corporate bootlicking. Even within the Nintendo fandom, there seems to be this acknowledgement that they allow the company to get away with too much and stifle constructive conversation that occurs in opposition to the company's success. There seems to be a need to defend whenever it comes to the company, even if what they're defending seems to have an adverse effect on their own consumption of content being produced by the company. There's a closeness there that sparks vehement community protection.
I don't know if y'all could tell by looking at me, but I am a huge manga fan. Like a huge manga. Like I used to watch a lot of anime whenever I was younger. I remember, I think the first anime I ever saw besides Dragon Ball Z was Inuyasha on Toonami, I think. And I got my full complete set. So proud of Akira books over here. And the anime community could get crazy sometimes. Like if you talk about, let's just say, One Piece, people will be up in arms. If you go and talk about Demon Slayer, people are like, no. If you talk about Bleach, people are like, no. Like, it's like, dude, all I said was like, I thought the pacing could be a little bit better. It's like, the pacing is what it is. And it's like, I don't think that it is though, but whatever, you know? So like, I'm just glad to see that even in other communities, I know the sports community get pretty crazy too, but even in it's something like gaming, like it's just because people are passionate, you know? People love what they love and they always have. That's just how they are. Like, it's just like with a certain musical artist. To some fans, it doesn't matter if their best album was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they will still. It doesn't matter what comes out about them in the news. They're still like, no, no, not my goat. It's like, no, your goat too.
Of the entire brand of Nintendo. What could be causing this? This is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty of it, the academic side of things, alright? So stick with me, I swear it'll make sense. I'm going to be focusing on two different academic concepts that I think really hammer home why this closeness to the company could exist. First one, I'm sure you've heard of, is parasociality. You've probably heard this applied to internet personalities and TV personalities, but not heard it applied to a company before. But I swear, it makes sense here, and there is value in it being discussed. So as we saw, Nintendo seems to be leaning more towards a designed informality that's being used to make users interact with their company's persona in the same way that they would a figure that they know on the platform. That is, they're creating this bond of intimacy that effectively only extends from one direction, from the fans, to garner more consistent interaction and more personal interaction, such as gifts, the jokes, whatever that joke was. And to link this to some literature, there's a piece by Donald Horton and Richard Wohl. In their essay Mass Communication and Parasocial Interaction, they discuss the existence of a persona that's created for mass media personalities that's used to create that bridge of intimacy between the persona and the audience. Nintendo seems to have, as a brand, curated a persona that serves a similar role that bolsters informal interaction. This parasociality to the persona seems to exist and be incredibly prevalent here. The second academic concept I want to bring into this is a bit harder to follow, so stick with me. Ontological security. What even is that? What is that? This is a concept that was coined by Anthony Giddens in his work The Self, Ontological Security and Existential Anxiety. So what is the general idea of ontological security? The idea is that there is a sense of security that's derived from early childhood that forms a stability and continuity in one's experience of the world. How does this relate to fan studies? Well, according to Giddens' piece, when this ontological security is disrupted through chaos or anxiety, it places that security into question and can create a variety of relatively irrational and visceral responses. Nintendo is a company with an incredibly solid track record that has been around for years, and most people have been consuming their content since a young age, as seen in the discussions that I had with peers within the community. As a result, many of the properties and the very existence of the company itself exists within the realm of fans' early lives and has become a part of their stable worldview. Nintendo will always be there, and it will always provide content that can be used as an escape from whatever's happening in their life. That is a constant. However, when Nintendo drama does crop up, it can be seen as the chaos that interrupts their ontological security, and thus the replies to this chaos can be very aggressive, emotional, and dismissive. This concept is most likely what has led the Nintendo fan community on X to develop the negative perception of bootlicking that surrounds it. Attacks on the brand are attacks on the stability of Nintendo fans' worldview. So overall, Nintendo fans seem to
I think we could pause it right there because I think he was about to get into his recap, and I want to do a recap because it's my show. So honestly, I do like that was actually two very solid points there at the end, especially the last one where Nintendo kind of made you feel safe, and that's everybody, like, except for if you're very old. But you know what I mean. For the most part, like you could always go over to your friend's house, and they probably had a Nintendo something, and they definitely had two remotes. So even if you like went with your parents, like got dragged really with your parents to their friend's house, and they had a son or a daughter or anything, and they had a Nintendo, didn't even matter if you knew. All of a sudden, you're over there. "Ugh, get off me, no." You know what I mean? Like it's just a good time, and you remember those times, and you're like, now you're trying to see it, and you're like, dude, I just want to play Metroid. Like, I just want to play Kirby, or I just want to play Mario Kart, or like anything. And I think they even only had like two releases. No, didn't they only release with the Mario Kart World game and then Bonanza? Like, is Kirby even out yet? It might be. Like I said, I play games. I wouldn't consider myself a gamer. But let me know how y'all feel about that one in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe because I would really like to know y'all's opinion on, would y'all ever mess with these Mickey Fickies again after this? Like, would y'all ever see a game of theirs and you want to buy it? Like, I want to buy the new Metroid game whenever it comes out, but I'm not spending $600 to play Metroid. Like, that that's absurd, you know? But let me know. And as always, I know y'all could have been anywhere in the world, anywhere on the internet, but instead you came to kick it with your homeboy Lil. Preach.